up. That's all I need.
He's rolling. He's rocking and rolling now.
Yeah, it's Friday. It's time to get this week over with. So
we're gonna have some fun today. It's Friday.
Well, let's do. Please
have some fun. Okay. First off, today, thank you so much for being here. I know that a bunch of people had to leave our presence and go do some other things because but they did express how much they appreciated the class, and we're sure happy to provide it to you guys. We've been waiting to do this for some long time, and have felt it's super important. So we're glad to be able to bring it to you. The recordings will be available. We're not quite sure exactly where yet, I think, right, Craig or Mike? Mike can probably.
I have the recordings so far. I will make them available in the I forget what I called the class files or whatever that folder is. So, yeah. But just kind of FYI also to everybody that folder only stays open to everybody for like a couple of weeks. So if there's anything in there you want, go in and get it in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, it closes down. So.
I did talk with Mike at one point about perhaps somehow making this available on a broader scale and more permanently, and we'll continue to talk about that. But in the meantime, you guys are the chosen few. So thanks for being here. We appreciate you, and we appreciate all the time and energy you've spent sitting in your houses and offices and trying to have an awesome class by online formats. We appreciate your patience with the technical issues that we've been having. Guy, are you able to hear me now? Sweet. Okay, we were having some.
I'm using two computers.
Okay.
Hey, he's a man of many resources.
There you go. Good job. Thanks, Guy. I'm glad you were able to fix that. All right, so this afternoon, we're going to start with basically me finishing up the presentation that I was supposed to do yesterday. We got to a certain point, and then my time ran out, and I have more to say. I have some very important things to say. And then we're going to get to play our game. So that's sort of the agenda for today. The game is a bit of a surprise, and you guys will just have to trust me that it's going to be awesome. And we've got some really great room leaders that have volunteered to help out with that. And we're going to break into small groups and do a little reviewing and having some fun. So that's the agenda for today. I am going to go ahead and bring up. I really wanted to ask Joe Lang yesterday how exactly he made this work and advance the slides if it's in play, but I wasn't able to ask him that question. So we were talking before about this lovely site evaluation form. We went through that rather quickly. That might be a really good thing to go through a little more slowly and with a fine-tooth comb on your own time, just to kind of look through. And I know that when I first saw it, I thought, how in the heck am I going to evaluate these things in this way? It gets easier as you go. Just be aware that the first few site visits you go out on are your learning experience. And you might mark them so you can come back and kind of reassess later what's bad and what's good and what's, looks in the middle, because those assessments are pretty general, and you'll get to be better at identifying those pieces a lot more quickly as you go along. And so we're talking at this point about actual planner records, not the financial records, not the other things, but just the pieces that go in your planner file when you're doing site visits with cooperators or landowners. And people are always commenting on how my notes are really great, but it's because I always think, who else is gonna, if someone was completely unfamiliar with what I'm doing, I am going to make notes enough that that person will have a good idea of what's happening without me standing there telling them what happened. And that person that may be looking at them, your notes, maybe someone else, or it may be you. After 400 site visits, you're not going to remember what happened on that site unless you take good notes. So it's very critical to take very thorough and very complete notes. And I would really recommend, especially if you're doing 4 or 5 site visits a day, that you are writing this down before you go to the next site visit. Because something will happen between that place and the next place to make you forget what happened at the previous place. So definitely keeping timely with your updates, keeping timely with your paper records, keeping timely with anything that needs to go online. I know that it's hard. I know that it's a challenge even in normal times to do that, but it's even more critical that we do that during these high volume kinds of activities that we're doing. So you also want to be recording things that are not on that list. So anything that's unusual, anything that's recurring, anything. I remember taking notes actually on like bigger picture things I was seeing within that neighborhood. Maybe I was there, I did 5 site visits, they all had Dalmatian toadflax. I'm going to write down, this neighborhood's got Dalmatian toadflax really bad. I need to tell that to the weed office or something. So you just want to be recording anything unusual or something that you're seeing kind of on that grander scale. And then you're going to kind of, some of this happens like in your brain, and some of it I'm going to show you a different tool for congregating that individual site data into larger pieces of information and then analyzing them for the larger scale solutions. And when Craig talked a little bit about that yesterday, about then you have that information to share with people, because they're going to be asking you how many miles of fence, how much, how many irrigation systems got impacted, how many individual landowners were you working with. Those kind of questions are going to keep coming up, and they're not going to stop for a long time. So if you're continually congregating that information and making it spit out in a way that is easy for you to understand and easy for other people to understand, that's a beautiful thing. And I'm going to make another plug for GIS, because that is a beautiful way of collecting data if you've got the capability to do that through your GIS system, and also keeping the tables and statistics updated and that kind of thing with layers that you've created yourself. So GIS is an amazing tool. If you're not really like into it or not really using it much, I would really recommend that you do more with it, because you're gonna realize that almost everything that we do as planners is really tied to location. And if you can attach in a map the individual data to that location on a map, then you're golden. You've got tools that help you visualize it better and help other people visualize it better. So we were actually making lots of GIS maps for the bear teams. I mean, the bear teams were doing that with help from us. And the county was using some of our data for GIS. There's just a lot of different applications. People can really visualize stuff. Those GIS maps that you take out on site, your cooperators oftentimes cannot get a picture from standing on the ground of what their entire property is like. And if you've got a map there that you can even draw on with a marker when you're out in the field, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It helps them visualize it. So those communication systems are super helpful. So when you get to the next stage, you've kind of collected all this individual site data. You're looking at each one for whether you have programs or whether you can develop programs for those different things that are needed. You already know how to do this. If you're a planner and you took the NRCS planning class and you have planner next to your name, you already know how to do this stuff, right? What you do have to kind of get your head around is the idea that there may not be an existing program to attach these plans to, right? You're sort of on the ground floor of developing different programs. And so what you're doing is you're collecting all that data, and then hopefully your admin and staff people are going out and getting you some money to do stuff with. you're going to develop those plans in a very similar way to the way that you would normally develop a plan. The difference is going to be that perhaps your program, it looks completely different than anything you've done before. So Craig mentioned yesterday that OCD got some money for hay, emergency hay distribution to people that didn't have hay. That is not something we normally do. And we had to develop like an entire finance piece of paperwork recording system for that project because it was way outside our wheelhouse. We had nothing that was even close. And so we just developed something that would work. Your assessments are going to be a little bit different. Your recording needs to be even more thorough if you don't have a standardized tool. So for example, you're usually going out and doing a stream assessment. Your stream assessment is completely useless because it looks totally different than a stream normally looks. You're gonna have to be recording things more specifically and more comprehensively than you normally would. So this is a sentence that I've been working on a lot for this particular presentation because this is one of my big takeaways. The most effective environmental scale treatment options in fire recovery work are likely to target very small areas of the highest risk. So, for example, I did some preliminary, we were playing around with numbers, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And we thought about doing some forest reseeding or forest replanting. And very quickly, the scale of that idea was so gigantic that when we put numbers to it, it was in the billions of dollars. And so that's not going to happen. It's just, there's just not enough money in the world to do some of the things that we could do out on the ground, right? So what we ended up doing was if we had some environmental thing that we wanted to do, not a human infrastructure problem, but an actual environmental problem that we felt like there was something we could do about it, we had to scale those down to the items of the highest risk. For example, we did a little bit of helicopter seeding in 2015 on very high slope hills and mountains, right? Very steep slopes that were in a large area that were above a home. And we had to really narrow down how many of those we were going to try to accomplish. And then, of course, those seeds are going to roll downhill, like I mentioned earlier. So how do we stick those to the slope so that they don't go somewhere else when rain comes, right? Doing that, targeting those controls to the smallest areas possible and focusing on the highest risk areas is a way to actually make it a manageable project.
So I've got a lot of stuff going on that's not.
If anybody else has their mic on, would you please turn it off? That would be fabulous. Thank you so much.
Terry, I want to quickly jump in here and just say that really focusing on specific factors of this is what we're protecting, this is how we're going to go about it. That is often the key between getting funding and not getting funding. And second of all, have conversations before you get to the need. Have conversations with Forest Service folks in particular around you and about what they particularly will more often than not prescribe as part of bear team stuff. They've been doing bear teams for literally like 80 or 90 years. They started in Southern California back in like the 1930s, I want to say. And having conversations about what they have found to be effective and not effective, what is worth the price, I guess, because, doing aerial seeding is not cheap. It's not inexpensive. So you really want to look at kind of what that cost is and everything else. So, I mean, we've learned a lot. There's been times where we've done aerial seeding that worked great. There have been times where we've done aerial seeding that it didn't work at all. So just keep that in mind. I mean, there are certain factors, and if all those factors don't line up, don't do it. It's a waste of money.
And a waste of your time, and a waste of your staff's time, and a waste of all the energy that you could have spent doing something really useful. Yeah, that prioritization is really an interesting thing and something to think about. You know, do we spend a bunch of time doing something that may not be so effective, or do we spend our time on the things that we can actually make a difference with? That was a huge conversation and a continual conversation when we were working with this in the fires in 2014, 2015. Usually the most fundable work has to do with that human interface, that human structure, infrastructure thing, right? Because people are worried about their jobs, they're worried about their livelihoods, they're worried about their, the way that they bring their money into their family, they're worried about their homes, they're worried about their roads and being able to get back and forth. Those are things that are much more fundable kinds of work, okay? And we do have a lot of BMPs that actually fit with that. I would have loved to have done a culvert project. We had some FEMA money. We were going to be able to put some culverts in, and we called up the Public Works Department and said, we want to put in bigger culverts. And that way we can replace the ones that are failing or the ones that might fail with something that might actually work and work for the long term for everybody, for the roads department, for the landowners, for the neighbors, for everybody. And unfortunately, because of some stuff that was happening on the county level, the Public Works Department was not willing to go there with us. But I felt like that was actually a really good use of time and energy and money. If you can think about something that might, our general impulse as conservation planners is to try to make something better for the environment, for the neighbors, for the whole system. If we can use the money that we're going to use anyway, that we're going to be requesting anyway, we might as well do it better, right? We might as well put in better fences. I know on the Colville Reservation, they've been having fires for years across the reservation, and their range department actually went to putting in steel posts because then they don't burn up. And so, we can use these technologies, we can fix the problem, the base problem, and not continue to put stuff in that's going to be a problem later. So I want to show you a quick example. I am going to pull this up to play, so I'll have to. Can you guys see that pretty well?
You can make it a little bigger, or maybe I can make it a little bigger on my screen.
Yeah, I can't really make it bigger on my end. I'll describe it. I'll describe as we go. Okay, so this is basically just a very simple version of a tool that I created to track cooperator data and to collect it and add it up. So basically it's just a regular old spreadsheet with some sections, right? The intake section, I think I originally had 3: intake, and then in progress, and then completed. And those sections have in them the last name of the cooperator, the first name of the cooperator, the mailing address, the phone number, all that contact information kind of stuff.
Can I have you stop sharing and I'll share my screen? Maybe mine's a little bit bigger.
Okay, let's do that. Let me stop sharing. Hold on. Come on. Okay, I think you've got it back now.
Okay. There, how about that? Hopefully that's a little bit bigger.
That's better. It's bigger.
Definitely. More better.
Okay. So, like I said, it's in sections, and then there's data going across. We talked about the making sure that we know when the person first contacted us. That became much more important later when we tried to sort out projects by, first come, first served kind of system. And then then the column also has what staff is assigned to that person. And I felt really strongly that it would be best for us if one person kind of handled that person, not have someone working with everybody in the office and everybody having to look stuff up every time somebody called, but that we had assigned cooperators to a particular staff person to follow up with. And we did call in other staff sometimes to help, but that person was sort of the lead for that particular project. And then, like I say, address and city and what watershed they're in, that was kind of helpful. That was actually quite helpful when I was trying to send out teams. I could send people out to a particular watershed or a few watersheds that were close together, right? That's something you might have to look up a little bit later than the initial phone call, but that's a piece of information that kind of came in handy. And then we asked them in our intake form whether they were an ag producer or not, whether they were working with another program called Working for Wildlife or not, because we had some funding we felt like we could use in particular situations if we felt like that program would apply. And then which fire they belonged to, which fire that property belonged to. Had they had a site visit yet, and then any comments. And we kind of created this system where the latest comment, the person would talk to the person, talk to the landowner, and then type in sort of a little summary of what they had done and then initial and date it. And that way we always knew who had called for what, at what stage that particular property was at, whether we had done certain things. And this became a very much larger, very much more complex spreadsheet later on. This is a very simplified version, but this will give you an idea of the kinds of ways that you can kind of organize the information. And then all you have to do in there is put in a column for fence length, right? And then at the bottom of the spreadsheet, add them up. Then you've got all that data in a very easily accessed, easily changed form. What you really have to be careful with spreadsheets is making sure that you're in the right cell when you make an edit. Because if you make an edit and you're writing over something else and you're in the wrong place, that can cause some real havoc. So you want your detail-oriented people to be in charge of the spreadsheet. And the people who are very careful about everything should probably be entering data in there.
I want to real quickly add, you'll notice, particularly in the far right column, there are months and dates that are listed. I highly recommend that you list the year too, in case you have a horrible time like we did, where we had back-to-back fire years of significant fires. You want to make sure, is this August 1st of 14 or 15?
Yeah.
So it's little details like that make all the difference in the world down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Craig. Can I get it back? Everybody got an idea. I didn't want to get too specific with this or give you like a tool already made up, because the conditions and the things that you're going to be looking at are different, right? For example, in that one just now, you had Working for Wildlife column. You're going to have some other kind of something that's going to be relevant to your area. That's going to be a different thing. So it's better to actually kind of develop those tools as you go, because that information that you're needing is going to change over time. The kinds of information is going to change over time. The things that become important are going to be different at different times. So sorting that, and we eventually decided, and I had actually come up with this idea, and then I didn't like it because it was too hard to learn something new in the midst of a disaster. But I had said, darn, this would be better in a database, but I don't know how to create databases. I know how to make spreadsheets, but I don't know how to create databases. And so we ended up doing a database that collected a lot of the initial phone call information and then tracked a little bit those, the project parameters and what happened later and whether they got all their forms in on time and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up going back to the spreadsheets because I couldn't personally work the database well enough to make the changes that I knew needed to be made. So if you are an Excel guru, then use Excel. If you're an Access guru, use Access. If you've got some other tool that works, use it. I mean, like I say, I've been using a CRM lately that seems like it might, if I'd known about it ahead of time and like practiced with it quite a bit, it might have been useful because it actually tracked, the one I'm using right now actually tracks your conversations and notes along through time. It makes an activity log for you, which is really handy. But then you also have to, like in our case, we have so much rural area that we don't have cell phone service in, even that sometimes those electronic tools are not as useful as we'd like them to be because we don't have access to the internet. But a lot of this is done in the office. A lot of this kind of collecting the information, you go back to the office and you put it in the tool anyway. So.
Real quick, I want to jump in here. Charlie Peterson put in the chat that Smart Sheets will do a lot of this work, and that's a new tool that a lot of districts have started using in the last 3 or 4 years. I totally agree, and it even allows you to create a online, a form that you can fill out, from your phone or whatever else. Those are absolutely perfect tools, and if people don't have the internet, they can still get a hard copy of the form, fill it out, send it into the office, and somebody can fill it out there. The nice thing about that particular tool is that it does have a tracking methodology for who has followed up with and done certain things with those. So it is a definite improvement from an Excel spreadsheet. We just didn't have access to it back in 14 and 15. We like for us, we started using it about a year and a half ago. So
yeah. No, that sounds great. Use the tools that you have. I mean,
yes.
Use tools that you have access to. I would recommend not necessarily trying something brand new right out of the box, right in the middle of whatever else you're doing. But other than that, use the tools you have because they're the ones that you're happy with and that you know how to use, because it is a lot of work. And any tools that you can use to shorten or condense or make that easier is a beautiful thing. So a few things that I wanted to just kind of wrap up with. Some challenges that we faced. We were very, very careful about landowners attempting to double dip from programs. For example, we were running some programs with Conservation Commission money, and NRCS was running some that were kind of similar at the same time. And we did have one that I remember, one landowner who tried to double dip from the programs. And that's actually really surprisingly rare. People are just usually very grateful to have some help. And so, there's always a few weird folks out there who want to try to double dip from things. But if you're keeping your records the way that you should and you're coordinating with your other agencies the way that you should, you ought to be able to keep that to a minimum. People were definitely frustrated that we couldn't solve all their problems. And I want to talk about that for a second, because that is going to come up again and again. People will be frustrated. People will be angry. They'll expect you to step up and solve everything for them. And that's a problem, especially in those situations, because you can't be there holding their hand about everything all the time. You've got many other people to be serving, and you've got to take care of yourself and your family as well. So I find it helpful in those kinds of situations to remember that the fire is, everybody calls it a trauma and a disaster and everything else. And that's true. It's hard. It's not an easy thing. But those situations where we're tested against something that's different than we've ever seen before can also help us learn who we are. And if we can figure out how to solve our problems, if we can figure out how to address the things that are a problem for us, no matter what scale they're at, no matter what the solution might be, it may take time for them to figure it out. But if they have responsibility for that, that is actually going to help them feel better about themselves later. And it's going to be a growing experience for them. So not to say that we don't want to help them, but my my way of looking at that is, how do we help them get to the stage where they're taking responsibility for their own stuff, right? When you're going out on a site, we've talked a lot about how to be empathetic and how to listen and how to, help folks get over that initial shock and awe. And that's super important work. And I'm not negating that when I'm talking about this at all. Helping them cope, helping them work through the things that they're doing is a great thing. Doing it for them is not a great thing, for them or for you. And so setting those boundaries early, letting them know way up ahead of time that you're willing to help them, but they are going to have to take responsibility for it themselves, that's a huge deal. Bob talked a little bit with the EWP program yesterday and how folks would come in and go out and come in and go out. And I'm actually okay with that, because that means they're thinking about it. They're not just handing it to you and saying, do this thing for me, right? They're actually saying, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for this. Do I want to? And that may change moment by moment, whether they're willing to or not, right? But that concept of the idea that it's a trial and that they will be tested against the problems that they have, and that they will come out better people if they learn how to deal with those things for themselves, and that you're just assisting them with that process, is a huge help when you're doing this kind of work, because people will demand things of you that you can't give. People will ask for things that you can't supply. So yeah, Craig, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, but at the same time, don't be afraid to, put a limit. I mean, you can only be available or offer assistance up to a timeline. Give them a reasonable amount of time. And that was, Bob and I were even talking about that this morning with the EWP, for example. At a certain point, we had to say, okay, by X date, end of the day, 5 o'clock, you need to tell us, are you in or are you out? We have to, because we have to know, for example, on EWP, what do we put in the contract out to a contractor? How many sites are we going to be dealing with? Are we dealing with 14 or 13? And just really don't be afraid to basically say, you need to make this decision by this date. We understand that you, and I agree, Terry, it's good that people are thinking about it and they're processing it and they're pros and cons and all that kind of stuff, and happy to help them. But at a certain point, just to be able to help others, you have to have a deadline. And that's okay too. As long as it's, not like, okay, I'm calling you up today and I need a deadline by tomorrow. Yeah. That's not fair. But give them, give them a week, give them till, a couple of weeks, whatever is reasonable, depending on the severity of the issue you're dealing with. We've had to deal with that even in cost share, not just with the EWP, but do you want the money for the fencing, yes or no? Because if you don't, there's somebody else that will, but we need to get started on their project to give them enough time to implement it if you're not going to take it.
Absolutely. And I think that the key with that really is letting people know. Just letting people know where the boundaries are and what the consequence is if they don't do the thing, right? And then they have the responsibility to make the choice, and they make it for themselves. If you give them the clear parameters and you allow them to make the decision for themselves, right? And the consequences are clear. And sometimes that takes some processing to communicate that to ourselves, even really in that situation, because we haven't thought about that. The first year we let everybody, we just told everybody, we'll help you. We don't know what we can do. We'll help you. And by the second year, we knew sort of what could and couldn't happen and what people would and wouldn't do. And so I said before, I set up a hurdle of, if you can't call back when we've called you 3 times, you're going to the bottom of the list, because that's the consequence, right? We had to allow them to know what the consequence was way ahead of time. I think I sent out a letter immediately when we had our list of projects. I sent out a letter and said, these are the things. And if you can't do X, Y, and Z, then these are the consequences, right? And that actually helped, I think, a lot, because it was just clear communication. I wasn't mean about it. I was very, very nice and sweet about it, but that is a really important thing, to set those boundaries for yourself. But those are professional boundaries, really, and probably we should be setting those anyway. So some of the other things that we struggled with a little bit, Craig can probably make a really long list, but these were some of the things that kind of popped to the top in my memory, were timing issues with available funding and additional funding. And like, we had one program where we were going to do something, but we had to have NRCS and FSA do their thing first, and ours had to be done within a period of time, and theirs couldn't be done before that period of time was over. And so we couldn't apply our funding to the problems because they had to go through this process. And so we talked with the funders about that, actually, and said, hey, this isn't going to work for this reason, right? And then we were able to get the funders to change the requirements a little bit so that we could actually get projects done. Things that, another thing is, traditional wait times on necessary evaluations, especially things like archaeological, cultural resource reviews, that kind of thing. We actually worked really closely with the archaeologists and created a more streamlined process, and they worked their buns off, frankly, to make it happen quicker. Because usually the archaeology really takes everything, slows everything down in every kind of project that we've ever done before. And so we were able to kind of negotiate with the archaeologists, and the state archaeologist actually was involved in that conversation about how do we make that process quicker so that we can actually get these things on the ground in a timely way in the time that needs to happen.
So Terry, I'd like to interject a comment about what happened with the EWP. As I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, but as I recall, a number of projects, the archaeologists that we were working with was just on site when the work was being done.
Yeah.
Instead of, having to do a formal survey and a report and all that stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, that was true for a big dam project that I helped with in Benson Creek area too. So they were willing to shift around a little, but that really relies on that development of those relationships ahead of time, and respecting and helping the other agencies to do their job, but also be able to work with the situation as it is, because it is different. It's very different. So those kinds of adjustments can only happen if you've got that established relationship and you're working those relationships and making them good. So if you have any questions, we're going to save them for the end. If you have any questions on my presentation, we can save them for the end. This is my contact information. If you have any questions about anything that I've covered, you're welcome, or anything else. If you want to talk about something else, that's fine too. This is my contact information for later. And I think what we'll do now is go to a short break. We're going to take about a 10-minute break and get ready to play our game. And for some reason, why is that not working? Okay. Sorry, my share screen thing was not working. There we go. Can you see me now? No screens? All right.
Yep.
We're going to take a short break. Go get comfortable because you're going to be in small groups when we get back. Thank you guys so much. Craig, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Do you want to give quick instructions before they come back and I can start the room, start setting up while they're gone? No, you're going to give it when you get back.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Because we'll forget it.
Yeah. Well, I know I will. So that's fair. Okay.
It'll take some time to get us set up. So
back at 2:50?
At 2:50. Yep.
Okay.
Terry,
Yeah,
your keyboard's making a lot of noise.
sorry.
It's nice to see you again, Rachel.
Good to see you. How was your weekend in between trainings?
Yeah, I've been on about a 2.5 month week training schedule. So it was my weekend was pretty calm actually. I think it went by so fast I don't even remember.
Well, it is Friday. Time to start thinking about the weekend coming up.
I think I have more work to do.
Oh.
So I think tomorrow I'm gonna skate away tomorrow and I'm going fishing. So
Nice. Bless you.
Thank you. So I
Good
think
luck
this
with
weekend,
going fishing.
it's just me and a buddy of mine. We're doing some lake fishing and I'm trying the boat out because lingcod opens up in May. So I'm going to go lingcod fishing. And then right after that, salmon season and crabbing season starts. So I'll be doing some of that. So I'm just getting everything kind of dialed in on the lake before I hit the ocean.
Lingcod, I think, is the best eating fish.
That's what I've heard. I've never had it. So it's a new experience for me. I've never fished it. So I got a buddy of mine. I think we're gonna play hooky one day out of work and go when everybody else is at work, so we ain't gotta fight everybody to go fishing. So
You are in for a treat if you get lingcod. I don't get me wrong. I love to eat salmon too, but I think lingcod is the best.
well, my wife is a little snooty. I will never say that in front of her. So if you ever talk to my wife and say I said that, I'll be like, I'll deny it fully. But she will not eat any fish unless they're out of the ocean. She will not eat trout, will not eat bass, crappie, none of that. She's got to have those ocean fish, and so I guess twist my arm. I guess I got to go fishing in the ocean.
Don't worry, Matt. That's been recorded. We'll make sure to share that. Okay.
Oh, thanks, Craig. You're supposed to stop recording.
Well, if she likes halibut, she'll like lingcod.
Yeah, and I actually bought my first halibut rod this year, so I'm learning a lot. Not being a native, from Washington State, I never grew up around ocean. I grew up around lake fishing. So in my 40s, I've had the experience to really start to learn a different style of fishing and really have grown a passion for it. So I'm doing everything I can on the open water.
So just take her the fillets of the lingcod because they're not a pretty fish to look at, but they sure taste good.
Oh, they're uglier than homemade sin, but if they're good eating, we'll cook them up. I think I've got one fillet from last year, a king salmon that I've been kind of coveting before I eat it, before I get some more in the freezer.
So I'm taking a Zoom training. Well, I don't know if it's Zoom, but I'm taking an online class, for fun later this month on how to tan fish skin to make leather.
Really?
Looking forward to that. Mm-hmm.
That seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2-month training that I just got out of was around best mitigation practices. And if anybody's looking at that class and really wants to know more about how to mitigate and everything, it's put on by the U.S. Forest Service and COCO. And it's a really good training. And it's a prerequisite to be part of a CMAT team and also do any wildfire mitigation with the feds. So if you're looking for more training, Rachel, I know Craig is always looking for training.
I need it. I'm as dumb as a stump. I take extra help. I surround myself with geniuses just so I can possibly have a chance of looking good.
Go on, Rachel.
Oh, I was just going to say, Craig, I was really disappointed. My audio cut out really bad yesterday afternoon during your session, and I only got syllables, so I'm
Oh,
looking
no.
forward to listening to the recording and hopefully could fill in those gaps. So thanks for doing that.
You didn't miss much, Rachel.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm joking. I'm joking. It was a good day.
I do have all those recordings, and I've also made them available to Mike Baden. So I know between the two of us, we will make them available to everybody. So you can go back and listen to them later. So you can torture your friends and family with them if you really want.
Well, something weird just happened. I got totally bumped out. I had to go back to the link in the email and start all over.
That's because you're using a Mac, Bob.
No. It was right after Rachel said a particular word. I can't remember what it was. But,
Macintosh.
Yeah, something like that. No, I think it was Windows or something.
Oh, okay.
Craig, I heard you offering the videos to people. But like I told you this morning, after seeing my face on the video, those are going in the vault. They're not coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I both, buddy. You and I both. Terry, you're making me work awful hard on a Friday afternoon. It's not very nice.
I got a question. We've got a Guy Gifford and a Gifford Guy.
Yeah. Yeah, watch out for both of them.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Craig, I sent you a copy of the spreadsheet. I can't remember what tab I made that list in, but I did some editing on that list. Look at it and see if it looks like the one I gave you yesterday.
Okay. That one.
Tabs say something about.
Room 1 is the same.
Is that because people aren't here?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. We are definitely down. We've been as high as what, 30 or 29 or something like that, I think. And we are at 22, I want to say, today.
Okay. So yeah, I was trying to kind of keep the foresty people that had requested a forest roll with the forest roll people and such, but I think we're gonna have to dispense with that nonsense. So.
Well, and honestly, I think you're using a list from before we kind of had a few changes as far as who was attending and stuff like that. Like, for example, you have Patrick Haggerty in here, and he dropped out of the class last week.
Oh.
So like he's not been here at all. So
I think I put him in that list because I thought he was going to be helping today, but decided not to. We'll get it. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there'll be a couple of groups that are smaller, and that's fine. You know, there's, you know, they'll just have to think a little bit harder. They'll have fewer people to lean on, and that's okay. That's not the end of the world.
So is that room 4 Is it room 4 that's too big or room 3 that's way bigger?
So we have room 1 has 3 people plus me, so 4. Room 2 has 2 people.
So let's just.
Room 3 has 6, room 4 has 3, and room 5 has 6.
So yeah, let's share those around.
Okay.
All
All right.
I think it's too small.
I'll move a couple out of. I'll move 1 or 2 out of room 3 and room 5.
Yeah.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Who do I want to play with here a little bit? Whose mind do I want to mess with?
Anybody on that list? Well, shoot, that list changed. There
Hey,
were
Frank and Terry, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
So this is Dean Helly. I want to participate, but I have an appointment and the person's late and I can't cancel the appointment.
Sure.
So put me in the largest room and I'll probably
Pop back in.
get interrupted, not be able to fully participate.
That's okay.
Thanks.
That's great. Thanks for letting us know, Dean.
Gotcha, Dean. It'll cost you a donut next time I'm over that way.
Hey, no problem. You guys are doing such an awesome job. I had this big long list of stuff I wanted to comment on and add to, and you covered it.
Sweet.
The ups and downs, the headaches, the heartaches, being through this. No, people wasting your time, people you don't have time that you want to help because they're too shy and bullies, and this brings out the best of people and the worst of people, and
Yep.
it's just a nightmare if you can't isolate yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
And you guys covered it all, so awesome job.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate that. Yeah, I hope all of you guys are getting out of this what you hoped to get out of it. And if not, let us know and we'll follow up and try to get you answers to questions that you might have. Craig is probably still working on getting people sorted into rooms, sort of like Harry Potter, you're being sorted into your houses. I wanted to make this part of our training more fun, so I thought, well, let's just make a game out of it. So basically what we're going to be doing, it's not exactly like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's sort of like Dungeons and Dragons, okay? And I think I explained earlier a little bit about what that was kind of like. We're going to throw you into something like a video game, okay? You're going to have to do some responses back to some challenges that we're going to throw at you. So how this works is we're going to sort you guys into different rooms. Each of those rooms is sort of going to have a focus. All of the situations that we're going to be presenting to you are things that actually happened. They didn't all happen to us at OCD, but most of them did. But somewhere, somehow, all of these have happened somewhere before, okay? You're going to be basically a team in your room. You're going to have a room leader. That room leader will give you sort of a general overview, and then they're going to have you work together, and they're going to throw what I'm calling humdingers at you, okay? Humdingers are problems, challenges, weird stuff that happens, whatever, right? And you guys are just going to discuss amongst yourselves and figure out how to deal with the humdingers, okay? You want to have your list of tools and your list of skills. And I asked you guys for those yesterday. If you weren't here yesterday or you don't remember, tools are things like a spreadsheet, a shovel, a hard hat, a vehicle, a GPS unit, funding source,
Topo map.
Topo map, something like that. Okay, some kind of physical or virtual tool.
And your wonderful intake map.
Yeah.
Intake form.
Intake forms, yeah, for sure. And then I also want you to have 5 skills. So things that your persona is particularly good at, okay? So maybe that's being very personable on the phone, or maybe that's you are great at traipsing around on really steep slopes, or what is your persona's excellent skill? In Dungeons and Dragons, you actually roll all these different kinds of dice that have different kinds of sides on them and stuff in order to generate those qualities and those tools. But in this game, where you're just gonna guess, you're just gonna get them. Okay, just figure them out for yourself. No tools to generate those. Let's see. All of these things have actually happened. You're gonna have a little bit of time to discuss and work with each other on the things, okay? And I really appreciate you guys participating in this. I think it's going to be a really awesome kind of a review, and also sort of putting things that you've learned in this class into practice in a somewhat safe scenario. I don't know if any group of people that includes me and Craig Nelson is actually safe, but no, but anyway, so here's your general scenario, okay? In April, a substantial amount of rain caused plants to grow even more lushly than usual. Hot, dry weather this summer caused that vegetation to dry, creating a lot of dry fuel. It's now late August. 3 days ago, a lightning storm passed through your area, sparking multiple small wildfires. The wind that came with the storm front blew those small fires into larger ones, which moved quickly through the dry fuel and coalesced into a very large wildfire. The fire created its own wind patterns, moving fire into areas it normally would not have gone, and destroying some residential structures, as well as farm infrastructure like fences and barns. As the smoke fills the air, your conservation district manager calls a staff meeting to discuss the district's response. As a group, you decide to help your community in whatever way you can. So your room leaders will have some further instructions for you when we go to the small groups, and I think that we're ready, Craig, if you're ready to split us up.
Okay, and I did put what you just read into the chat, so if people want to go back to read that, they can. I'm now going to put everybody in the rooms. God, I hope it works. I tried this 2 or 3 times beforehand, and it worked, so fingers crossed. Those of you in room 1, I'm going to be coming into that, but I'll come into it in just a minute, so just go ahead and get started without me. Here we go. It might take a minute. Maybe.
It says 10 seconds.
Does it? Oh, okay. Mine doesn't tell me anything. I'm glad it's telling somebody something. Okay, so who did it leave me with here?
I'm not in, so. I don't think it worked, Craig. It kicked us all out.
Well, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Well, let's see here.
This is Sharon Frazee.
Yeah, Sharon, you're supposed to be in room 4. Why aren't you in room 4? Get into room 4.
Oh, funny. I'm here, and then there's just a bunch of phone numbers.
Assign.
And a guest.
Can you hear me, Craig?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Can
good.
you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear Sharon.
Yeah, I can hear Sharon. But Sharon's supposed to be in room 4.
I'm supposed to be
too. And now here comes Margaret. What in the world?
It did kick me clear out to rejoin, if that helps you.
Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to say assign room 4. Sharon, you should go away in just a second. No offense.
Sorry, I just came
seconds.
on. I was out in the field, so I wasn't here earlier.
You're okay.
Okay.
You're okay. Give us a few minutes. We're trying to arrange people going into the right rooms.
Okay.
Well, for crying out loud. And I can't figure out how to get you, Terry, into room 2. It shows you in room 2, but you're clearly not.
I'm not there.
There we go.
Oh, she's gone now.
So now let's go room 2. Hopefully, Terry, you're moving to room 2. Margaret. Well, what room are you supposed to be in? You're room 4 as well. Sign room 4. Okay. All right. Who else is here?
I'm here. It's Katie Zander here. I got kicked and I just got back in.
Okay, no worries. I'm going to. Oops. Here we go. Da, 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 da.
Did that happen to a few folks in the rooms, or is that just me who got kicked?
No, there was 2 or 3.
Okay.
There was a couple that never even went.
Oh, gotcha.
All right, so I'm going to try and get you back to. You're supposed to be in room 2 with Terry. So.
Looks like I got an invitation here. I'll click accept.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Anybody else still there? We got a couple of phones that are showing here. Okay.
Hello?
too with our system. So our outreach. So we're gonna obviously ask.
Hello? Is anyone there? Hello?
I'll say maybe try to do it on our own. We can try to evaluate who else.
walk around. The glass museum is right down. Chihuly Glass Museum is right down the road. So,
okay. See you later.
See you later. Take care.
All right. There's the guy that did it to us right there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know, it's just a little button I click, and I wish there was a way I could go in and say, "Hey, 30 seconds." But yeah. But
Well,
I tried
it
to
did
give
go
everybody
across
a
the top.
warning.
It
And
said 10 seconds. So.
Yeah. And then I took an extra minute or two to do it. So yeah.
So I'm really sorry to my first room. Craig bailed me out of there, and so I didn't mean to leave you, but I got Scotty beamed me up to somewhere else. So
I stole her.
You don't have to leave us, Annie. We understand. You know, we were just being boring.
Yeah. Well, I was forming a pretty big grudge, Annie, for a while, but now I feel better. So.
Right.
I know they got through telling me where they had big problems, and I was like, I'm out.
I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore. No. I think we lost Terry. Did we lose Terry?
Oh no.
I don't see her.
I don't see her. Oh my God, Microsoft, you're the bane of my existence. Oh.
You need an apple.
All right. Well, hopefully she'll join us back again. Did everybody have some good conversations? I'm hoping. It sounded like there were some when I popped into some of the rooms. So.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good people to work with too. So.
Right. So while we're waiting for Terry to get on, I will mention to everybody that I did put the. Somebody had asked yesterday. I talked about the mutual agreements with other organizations. I put that into the shared folder for everybody. So go in and check that out. You know, and get a hold of that. Bob's going to send me a copy of Joe Lang's presentation. He probably already forgot after I discussed it with him this morning.
Yeah.
I don't blame him at all. So, anyways, yeah, if you can, yeah, come back and check on that occasionally. We'll get more of those presented, but that folder will kind of go away here in a couple of weeks. So if you want to get stuff out of it, get it in the next week or so. I know it's good through the end of the month and well into the first week of May, but Microsoft made me, it only allowed me to share it for so many days. So I put the maximum on there. I just don't remember what the final date is. It's like the 13th or 14th of May or something like that. Okay. All right. So who are we missing here? I got an email. Who sent me an email? Somebody else. Okay.
So we might say that again at the end, Craig, because I know it kicked me clear out and I had to come clear back in from the email.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I know
Katie's also trying to get back in. Same thing that you had.
Yeah. So in the chat box, tell me how you felt about that experience, about being in the rooms and kind of reviewing and having those situations to kind of try to deal with. Give me some things in the chat box about how that went for you, how you felt about it. Don't have to be super detailed. Just give me a thumbs up or smiley face or I hated it or whatever.
Yeah.
I hate this.
Who's saying they hate it?
Matt.
Mr. Technology over here.
Technology.
The GIS guru.
Exactly. GIS is easy compared to some of this other stuff I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Good. I was hoping that you guys would be able to review, kind of use the things that you're learning, get some reflection going on the things that we learned about, and get to know each other a little bit better and make some connections that way, because that was the point. Woohoo! Thank you all for your comments. That's fabulous. I appreciate that. And because each of those rooms was sort of had a different theme, I would kind of like us to all kind of get together and wrap up. However, we've been sitting here for a little while. Does everybody, how do you feel? Would you rather leave a little bit early and keep going now? Or would you rather take a little break and then have it go till the end maybe? Or as long as we feel like we need to go? What do you think? Keep going or take a break?
Keep going.
Keep going? Okay.
I see a keep going in the chat, a couple of them.
Bunch. Other people's rear ends are not as sore as mine, I guess. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Good. Trying to watch my language on the recording. Okay. All right. So let's have a little report. If your room went the way that it was supposed to go, someone was supposed to be appointed a spokesperson in your room.
Mm-hmm.
So the person that was the spokesperson for room 1, I love your memes, guys. That's awesome.
Oh, jeez.
So who was the spokesperson for room 1?
So I'll be the spokesperson for room number 1. They're kind of, it was a small room. There was just 3 of us, and then there was just 2 of us and Craig. So anyway, it was great. I mean, the scenario that we were given, you know, we had three tech teams. We had 3 planners, an admin person, and outreach, and so it was good having Craig in there, because for me, you know, being a district manager who kind of leaned on Craig last year, you know, I was able to ask him, you know, kind of how, you know, I have an idea of you know, how, or I know how I did it. You know, it was great to you know, talk about how he did it. And also Delaney, the other person in our group, you know, I'll let her, if she'd like, she'd speak for herself, but she had just come here and had 1 year under her belt at Lincoln, you know, before these big fires. And so, you know, I also lean on Elsa Bowen at Lincoln for advice too. And it was great to kind of understand how they reacted, you know, because you know, one thing I try not to do is reinvent the wheel. So anyway, it kind of came down to, you know, we you know, as far as outreach, you know, do it on the fly. You know, was the kind of what we talked about, and the different forms of you know, outreach, a web form, postcard, you know, and we also talked about bringing in other resources, you know, partners and that sort of thing. So, and it kind of went back to what we talked about earlier was, you know, have these conversations with your partners early so you don't have to do it on the fly. That was a good part of it. And then, you know, our funding part, you know, right where I, you know, talked to the State Conservation Commission, the DNR, Craig talked about, you know, being able to modify grants that you already have in place to get funding. And so I think those are all, you know, really, really important. And then reaching out to the NGOs, particularly ones rated, you know, related to agriculture, like the Farm Bureau and that sort of thing. And then the last part of our scenario is we got lucky and, you know, got $2 million from the legislature for recovery, but we also had a whole group of stressed out planners and how we would deal with that. And we talked about a tiered funding approach, which may not be popular, but probably the most effective. And we were talking about all this, and then, Annie was with us at that point, and I think her and Craig were probably both waiting for us to actually, come up with the most logical thing was like, go hire some more people, if you're overwhelmed. And it probably would have been the last thing that I would have thought of. And so, and then I guess it would all take off from there. If you have more capacity, then you're able to help more people. And then as far as stressed out planners go, knowing when, that they need to have a break, that whether they want it or not, pull them off and have them take a few days off and get some rest and some perspective. So anyway, we had some wonderful side conversations about, the legislature and DNR, and it was great. So that's how that went for us.
Cool. Awesome. So room 1, for those of you that weren't in there, were the Wizards of Wildfire. And that was kind of focusing on a district manager kind of perspective and what those folks would kind of deal with. So out of all of those humdingers that I threw you, what was the one that was most unexpected? Dave?
$2 million for sure. That's, yeah, it's, and having that kind of windfall, and then it's in your lap, and you got to do something with it, and it's got to be meaningful, and it's got to be good for your community, and that was by far the biggest one. The rest of them is just kind of what can happen day to day, no matter what. But having a big windfall like that was that's unusual.
Very cool. Awesome. For those of you that weren't there, I don't know if you used, Craig, if you used the humdingers that I gave you, if you used some of your own. I gave the room managers the opportunity to add things as they thought them up, but actually all of the things that I wrote had either happened to us or to some other conservation district that I was aware of. Okay, so all of these are real things that you guys were working with. Anyway, so maybe what I will do is actually put the document that I gave to the room managers in the file as well. So if you have a chance, go in there and look and think through some of the things that happen to the other roles. Because one of the things I wanted to point out with this activity too was that oftentimes, did you notice that the personas that you had chosen that I made you do kind of dropped away, and that suddenly you were thinking like somebody else, right? Suddenly you had to think like somebody else. And that frequently happens when you're in that situation where you have a group of people and you're all kind of doing new things and you don't know what you're doing and you are trying to figure it out. Yeah, sneaky. I am sneaky. And surprising, hopefully. Surprising. But those are those are actually the things that are going to happen to you when you're in that situation of fire. So having that experience of drop the role that you're currently in and try to think like somebody else and brainstorm with them, help them to figure out what's going on in their world. That's a big deal. So thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate you serving as your spokesperson for your room. Go room 1, the Wizards of Wildfire. Nice job. Room 2 was actually me and Katie Zander, and we were the Rangeland Rogues. We were a Rangeland planner role. However, she had actually chosen an office staff role. So we started out answering the rangeland questions, and then she said, this is kind of not my thing. So we went and did more of the financial manager group questions. And so, Katie, are you on now? Are you back with us?
When we all rejoined, she got kicked and she's been trying to join, but I haven't seen her back yet.
Okay. Well, I will just go over a few of the humdingers that I threw to the rangeland group then, even though we didn't do them much. But just so that you have a sense of other things to kind of think about. After the first outreach meeting, your office is suddenly receiving 40 phone calls per day from landowners with concerns. You're getting snowed under. And Katie had a great answer for this, because we were 2 people, right, in our little conservation district. And what are we going to do with 40 phone calls if we're 2 people? And she said, we're going to get a voicemail. And we're going to prioritize those phone calls, and we're going to answer them as we can. So I thought that was a brilliant answer from that perspective of, how do you keep going when the scale of what you need to do is so much bigger than what you normally do? How do you do that? You sort and you choose your battles, right? You do the most important things and you wait and do the other things later. A cattle producer walks into the office with a glazed look on his face. He says the FSA requires him to provide proof of the loss of his cattle. He pulls several cow hooves from his bag and lays them on the table, saying that the hooves were all that was left. We talked about the fact that there's not a lot you can tell that producer, right? FSA is not going to change their rules because you march in there and get angry with them. FSA is a federal agency. So, but it's that human contact, that ability to share something with somebody. If you sat down next to that person and you just listened for a while, that might be the best thing that happens to that person all day. Just being with them in that moment can be the best thing that you could do for them, and the most useful thing that you could possibly do for them, because it's not like you can fix it, right? You can't fix it. So that's another one that we were kind of talking about. A couple that we didn't talk about were, you go out in the field and you realize you can't find the location by the street address because the street sign's all burned down. So what are you going to do about that? There's a question in here that's also going to be done during the wetland one. Anyway, so that's kind of, our room was great. Katie was awesome. She had some excellent answers to the office staff role questions. So we'll go on and maybe address a couple of those when we get to that group. So who is the spokesperson for room 3? Anyone?
Rachel is the spoke. Rachel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I didn't know what our room number was. So we were the forest elves. We were foresters. And our scenario was that very heavy April rain had caused lots of vegetative growth, but by late August, vegetation was dry, and that multiple independent lightning strikes sparked several fires that combined into a larger complex. And so and then another element of our scenario was that we were also fielding 40 calls a day, and we were a group of 4 of us. And so we started thinking about how to coordinate and how to pull in more resources. So we pulled in existing volunteers to answer the phones. We worked hard reaching out to other agencies and local fire crews to coordinate our efforts so we didn't duplicate. to help identify other resources that would be available to us, to do important things like getting a map of the fire perimeter, collecting information that way. And we didn't necessarily say it as a group, but Emily was a great note taker and captured lots of our ideas. And then when I was trying to think about how I would report back to the group, I kind of noticed that a theme in a lot of the humdingers that got thrown at us, we really relied on teamwork and in those novel situations. So we had a diverse group of some folks with lots of firefighting and fire recovery experience, and also me, total novice, knew nothing except what I've learned through this training here. So especially as a novice, the teamwork concept was really important because teamwork revealed information that we didn't necessarily have or got us other resources. So one of the humdingers that was thrown at us was that a landowner was willing to talk to us, but they said, you can't come to my place. I have to meet you down the road because my neighbors are patrolling the roadways on ATVs and they're armed, and because of concerns about looting, they're not allowing anyone into the neighborhood who doesn't live here. So with that early on in our experience, I think we were kind of primed to think about staff safety. And another theme of the teamwork in staff safety was when other safety concerns came up, we kind of turned to our safety buddy to literally pull us out of the hole in some cases. So I think that was a great theme from our discussions and our brainstorming to really build a good team in the beginning, and then your team can help you get out of just about any pickle that comes up. So we relied heavily on DNR consulting foresters when salvage timber harvest questions came up. We reached out to other agencies. We worked hard to educate and inform landowners about potential flood risks, even if they weren't near a year-round stream, if they were, at the base of a dry draw, to educate them about their post-fire flood risks. Let's see. I thought it was kind of interesting, and this is, I'll go out on a limb here and say this was not necessarily the group's perspective, but something that I noticed. So in our group, we were 50% male and 50% female, and one of the scenarios was presented, and we responded differently. The females, I think, jumped immediately to safety concerns, and the males interpreted the threat or the humdinger as something different other than safety. So I thought that was interesting too, to think about. Your team can not only help you respond to risk, but your team can help you evaluate risks in ways that you wouldn't necessarily occur to you as an individual. So.
Awesome. That's great, Rachel. Were there any other humdingers that you thought were awesome, like very insightful, particularly like surprising?
Well, another humdinger was deer run out in front of your vehicle crossing the road, and at first we kind of, almost giggled and said, well, we'd take pictures and then we'd go about doing our work. And then, but in trying to think about why was this thrown out at us as a crisis to deal with, and then we realized, well, maybe they were running from an advancing fire line, that we need to look at that as a safety concern for us. There was another humdinger about you're walking through a stand of burned trees and you hear severely burned trees and you hear a loud crack. What do you do? So that potentially could have been a threat from above. And another humdinger was you're walking along and you suddenly fall waist deep into ash and feel heat through your boots. So that was an unanticipated safety risk from below. And one of the members in the group pointed out that when you're identifying danger, you got to look up, you got to look down, you got to look in front of you, behind you, and to all sides. And I thought that was pretty insightful too. So we kind of relied heavily on the live to do conservation another day and keep your team safe.
Absolutely. That's
look in 4 dimensions.
Yeah.
Up, down, left, right, and over time, because it will change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Great review. Thank you so much. That was awesome. That was a terrific summary of what you guys went over. Well done, room 3. Okay, who's our room 4 spokesperson?
I am. This is Sharon Frazee.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. So yeah, we were the wetland warriors, which I felt lucky because I don't think I told anyone this, but I'm a fish biologist, so this was perfect for me. I don't know how you put me in this room, but yeah, so I think we haven't really been talking about our skills, but I felt like we had a good set of skills in our group. We realized early on that we needed to be able to speak well in groups and also on the phone. So communications was a huge part of our skill set. We, of course, needed all kinds of wonderful maps, topo maps, maps of homelands or homes, and as well as wetlands, since we're the wetland warriors, and be able to look at floodplains, and plant species again. And then another skill that we really needed was empathy, being able to make that one-on-one connection with people. Let's see, what are some of our, I guess our first humdinger was that connected, or sorry, when you get 40 calls in a day, what do you do? I think our first one was just make sure we had the right people in those positions, good people skills, and great organizational skills as well. Start them off with a spreadsheet. And then, of course, like everyone else has been saying, is call in for help. So, you know, have a good plan and be able to communicate that. And then with that huge amount of calls coming in, to try to maybe automate it somehow, bring in, you know, an online survey form from social media, and then be able to rank those requests, kind of what we call a triage. So I think others have pointed that out too. But and then another thing that we mentioned was planning through watershed boundaries. So trying to assign those caseloads appropriately. Let's see, what other one? We had one where, you know, somebody was in the bottomland and in a hydrophobic area, and how would you find the landowner? And that was something that I thought was interesting, because, you know, if the landowner's not there in this day and age with cell phones, that can be really challenging. So, so again, that communication piece, being able to talk to neighbors, and I guess there was a funny story about how somebody had gone up to a house and they had one of those cameras. So before the person even had a chance to find out who that person was and call them, that landowner had called the planner and said, hey, you know, what is who are you and what do you want, I guess. And I want to go back. I forgot to introduce our group of wetland warriors. So we had Trevor, and he was office staff. And then we had Bob Clark, who was the wetland planner. and Margaret, who was the engineer. So we had a good group. And then since I was the speaker, I became the PIO. So I thought this was kind of my superhero. I didn't realize I'd have to actually speak today, but oh well. So I guess maybe one other one that I thought was interesting was when intense wind pushes fire into a riparian area, what are you gonna do? And so we had just identified that, you know, fish and riparian habitat were at risk. And there was, you know, potential of bank erosion and ideas for maybe replanting, but also felling trees into the stream. But you would have to, when you're doing this, you'd have to consider an elevated bankful height. Make sure that your trees don't go flying down the stream and do additional harm, which we're all trying to avoid. So I think that might be most of the things that we talked about.
Awesome. Great job, you guys. That's awesome. Very
Thanks.
cool. Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
we had a great time. So it was really great to have the breakout sessions.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys being willing to stand up and speak when you don't really want to. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and our last group was room 5. They were the charismatic clerics. They were financial manager and outreach people, office staff kind of people. And who's our spokesperson for that group?
Well, do you want to speak, Matt, or do you want me to?
I can't either way we do it. I mean, you know, it's fine, you know.
Go for it and I'll fill in. Yep.
Okay, yeah, we're the charismatic clerics, which was funny because I hate The Office. But we really broke down to where, you know, what resources we had. You know, we had 10 staff members, you know, ranging from 4 planners to a manager to a couple of an IT person, some administrative assistants, and really started identifying where our need would be in the future and kind of seeing, okay, where are we going to pull these resources from? You know, we said we would probably need, you know, 3 more planners, potentially a soil specialist. And then, you know, reaching out to different agents, whether it be federal, state, or local, to really see what they could provide in additional, you know, whether it be manpower or just giving some more people in the office. And you gave us some humdiggers. I'll give you that. I forgot to. It started out as me and Mike and Dean and Amanda were in our room, but it kind of ended up with me and Mike. So it was really fun to really just bounce ideas off. You know, after we identified a few of that, one of the humdiggers, you know, we ended up getting black mold in our office. So how do we react to it? So we were, you know, a couple of things we tossed around was setting up a temporary remote station, like a tent or something, you know, to where we can start working remotely, seeing if partners have some space. Why'd you shake your head there, Bob? You know, look at some chances to rent some spaces. You know, we needed to move for long term because we were going to put that mold on the backside because, you know, this is the issue we need to, you know, mold can be handled later time. And then another one, and you know, our normal grant applications were due, so we had to, you know, really look at how we were going to do that. We were going to ask for an extension right out the gate and see if we get extension. If great, good, well, we're percent. But if we had to give staff away, we were really going to say work on these grants that we need to do, and now start researching, you know, post fire or post, you know, recovery grants that we can start applying for to where we get ahead of that.
If we were going to lose people from the field to work on the regular grants, let's use their time effectively and look for other funds while they're at it. So, yep.
And then all of a sudden we got 4 times our budget, which was great, right? So we started with, first we'd say we'd reach out to other districts to really see how we could get, you know, increase that capacity. Look at temp hiring agencies, you know, where we can get some temporary people in there to, you know, start helping with that, and other county administrative assistants, you know, to really increase that capacity. And then, another humdinger, the end of the fiscal year is coming up. What are we going to do for the next year? We said we were really going to start looking for ways of increasing funding, whether if it's an area that doesn't have rates and charges, using this opportunity maybe to move into rates and charges where we can get somebody funded to where they will do the work that we're doing and be ahead of the game for the next year. And then we talked about, and we had, the reserve of and fire were depleted, and the district manager arranged $500,000 to be brought into the district for emergency hay. We said we would develop an application process that would have a review committee, which would probably be some of our board members actually coming in to where we didn't have to take resources that were already at work, make the board work, to where they could do reviewing and do that. Ask for the list of the hay vendors so they're not prioritizing who they've worked for in the past. And then look at, sensible transport, whether try to find volunteers outside of the burnt, area that could probably volunteer to use their trucks, trailers, and everything like that. One of the questions that the humdiggers that we didn't get a chance to, really answer is, we lost our district manager all of a sudden. I was like, oh, thanks. You lose the head item. So, we didn't get able to reach them all, but it was a great opportunity to really brainstorm with Mike and get to learn a little bit more. But that's all.
Awesome. You guys did a great job. That's awesome. Hit all the high points I was hoping you would hit.
Well, you had some humdiggers, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I when I very first started thinking about this class, I started thinking about this idea about the, throwing the challenges out. And I just asked all of the people that I knew that were involved in one way or another, what was the weirdest thing that happened to you? What was the strangest piece of something that occurred? So yeah, it was a good list. I think you guys did a great job of addressing the problems. One of my big goals for this exercise was to get you thinking in a role that was not yours. Mm-hmm. To get you thinking about the problems that other people might be facing, that to have empathy not just for the folks who are victims of the wildfires and the things, but also for the other people who are in other positions, to get a little empathy for them as well, and realize that they have their own big, humongous challenges that they're facing in that realm as well. You guys came up with some fantastically creative solutions to some stuff, and that's really what this class was about. Wildfire and other disasters are really outside the realm of normal, and you've got to start thinking about how do I think outside the realm of normal? How do I pull stuff together in a situation that's different than my normal situation? And you guys did a great job in that little exercise of getting out and thinking outside the box, and really thinking about the resources that you have at your disposal. I had you guys think up skills and tools because you already have skills and tools, right? You as a person, as a planner, as a community member, in all your different roles, you have skills and abilities. And if you can kind of take that 30,000-foot view and look at your own group and see what they are. I found that the fires actually did that for myself. I was able to much more easily kind of look at myself and say, oh, that's a strength, when I wouldn't have even thought of that as a strength of mine before. But because we were under this kind of pressure cooker, we were able to learn things about ourselves, to learn things about our teammates, to learn things about our supervisors, to learn things about all the people that we were working with, and really respect and honor them for the work that they're doing. It's hard work. It's sometimes dangerous work. It's sometimes sad work. It's definitely hard, but it's some of the most gratifying work that you'll ever do. And I hope that you come away from this training understanding that you have some skills that in that emergency situation could could be really put to good use for your communities and for your families and for your homes. And on that note, I believe that Craig has a couple of announcements about the file system. And Mike, if you have any final thoughts, and we'll wrap up and go home. What do you think?
Sure. Mike, you want to go first?
Well, I just, again, I mean, very thanks to everyone that joined us through this time. I really thought it was great. Great to hear from folks. Thanks to the Okanagan CD and Terry for putting this together and for all the speakers. I really do appreciate it. I hope it was valuable. It's the first time we've ever tried anything like this, and I'm really appreciative to all the work that came into it and for all of your commitment in spending time with us over these last few days. So hope it was valuable. Again, I hope you can take it back, use it. Well, hopefully you don't have to use it, but if you do have to use it, hopefully you have some tools anyway. But it's good to just see people, get familiar with people as well. I hope we get to share more time in the future. And again, like I mentioned at the beginning, we have some other trainings coming up that are part of this grant, primarily around your home ignition zone trainings that are being taught by NFPA. And again, if folks kind of in that north central-ish area or a little bit beyond want to join us, I think it's the second week of May. We have some rooms still in that class, and we'd love for you to take advantage of it. And just reach out to me if you're interested, and I can help get you connected for the registration for that. Because for the couple of times we put that on so far, I thought it was really a beneficial training too that people would really get a lot out of as well. So just making a plug for that. But if you're interested, please feel free to reach out. And other than that, thanks again, everyone, and hope you have a good weekend.
I put Mike's contact information in the chat, so if you don't have his contact information, you can get a hold of him. So yeah, I want to echo what Terry and Mike and others have said. I really appreciate you all being here. I want to leave you with a few thoughts. First and foremost, I'm going to be sending out a survey sometime early next week to ask, what went well, what could have been done better. You never know when Mike might twist my arm enough to do this again, or to do it differently or whatever. And if we do, I want to make sure that it's better than this one. And I know that there's room for improvement, so you're not going to hurt my feelings. You might hurt Bob's, but you won't hurt mine. I throw Bob under the bus all the time. If I didn't, he'd feel a little bit different. So anyways, yeah, thank you all for spending this time with us. I want to leave you with kind of 5 bullet points, if you will. One is, don't ever forget to take care of yourself. If you are thrust into this situation, please do take care of yourself and take care of those around you. I don't care whether you're a supervisor or not. Reach out to your coworkers, reach out to your friends and family and others, and take care of yourself. If you need to take a few hours or a day or two or whatever off, do so. I didn't in 14, and I crashed for 2.5 weeks that winter, and it was ugly, beyond ugly. And I really want to stress that. So, and I know that I asked way more of Terry and Bob and the other folks that were working for me at the time. I asked way more of them than I should have, and they came through with flying colors, but I know that it had an impact on them. And I, and as well as many members of our community, are eternally grateful, but we shouldn't have to ask each other to sacrifice to the level that many of us did. So just please take care of yourself. Be prepared to change hats to the situation. You might go from being the manager to being the public information officer, to being the planner, to being the finance person, to being the grunt, to being the I don't know what. And the most effective people are those that are the most adaptive. So don't catch yourself in a rut of I can't do this. This is not my job. To the maximum extent possible. I mean, there are limits, yes, but be prepared to be flexible. The next item, which goes to the total opposite of that, is don't be afraid to kind of set some boundaries, particularly for your time, and for yourself and for your crew. You cannot expect people to give up 16-hour days over and over and over again, 12-hour days even. Don't ask people to work Saturdays and Sundays. And if they're offering to do it left and right, take them up on one. Don't take them up on all of them. Tell them go home, go spend some time with their family, go relax, go get a fresh break, get just step away from it for a little bit. Come back with renewed vigor on Monday or something like that. Okay. And then finally, the last thought is, you all know who Bill Withers is? Raise your hand. Bill Withers, number 1 song. Don't forget, Lean on Me. Okay. One of the best songs ever. Okay. And that could be on me. That could be on your neighbor. That could be on your other district person. That could be on, whomever. But do not forget to reach out to others and ask for help. I almost didn't do that in 14, and it was another district manager that pushed me into asking for help. And it made a world of difference. Okay. So, don't be afraid. These are not things that you have to handle by yourself, especially if it is a major disaster. Reach out. Even if it's just for guidance and suggestions and things like that. Don't be afraid to find a way to, find a way to bring in additional assistance to help you in the office, to going out and talking to landowners, whatever it is. You gotta lean on each other. Okay. That's the one thing you cannot, set aside your pride. Your pride goes out the window immediately. As soon as there's a disaster, just throw it in the trash and walk away from it. Go find your help that you need, that's going to help you be better and help protect you to survive another day. And it's going to help your community recover faster. So with that, I'm done. I'll turn it back over to Terry. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you all so much. It's been a delight to be with you, and have a great weekend.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Get in touch if you need us.